All right, so today we are diving deep
Yeah, diving deep.
into How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie,
A classic.
a classic. And, this is one that, we got a lot of requests to cover, and rightfully so.
Absolutely.
It's sold over 10 million copies
Wow.
and been translated into 36 languages. So clearly it's
Yeah.
hitting a nerve with people. But
It is.
does this 1937 classic
Yeah.
still hold up for entrepreneurs in the 21st century?
You know what? I think it's fascinating how relevant his principles remain.
Yeah.
Even in today's fast-paced business world, they're really timeless strategies for building relationships, influencing decisions, and ultimately achieving your entrepreneurial goals.
Yeah, and he actually started out focusing on public speaking,
Right.
but it kind of had this aha moment,
Yeah.
realizing that building relationships was the real key, especially for anyone in business.
And it wasn't just his hunch either.
Right.
The University of Chicago and the YMCA did this huge study back then. And guess what was the second most popular interest for adults?
Let me think. Getting along with people.
Yes, right after health.
That makes total sense.
Right.
Because as an entrepreneur, your journey is built on those connections. Think about it. Customers, investors,
Yep.
employees, partners. Success hinges on how well you can connect with people.
Absolutely. That's
You-
the foundation for everything.
It is. So how do we actually win those people over and get them on board with our vision?
Well,
Carnegie breaks it down into 6 core principles for likability.
okay.
And I got to say, they're pure gold for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, let's unpack those.
Okay.
Starting with principle number 1, genuine interest.
Okay.
It's not just about slapping on a smile and shaking hands.
Right.
You have to genuinely care about people, their
Mhm.
needs, their challenges.
It's about going beyond the surface level.
Mm-hmm.
Carnegie talks about truly understanding your customers, not just trying to make a quick sale.
And that's how you build trust, loyalty, and ultimately a thriving business. People can sense when you're genuinely invested in them, and that makes all the difference.
It's like that saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
It is.
Okay, next up, the power of a smile.
Ah,
Now, this one might sound a bit cheesy,
yeah.
but Carnegie was onto something.
He was.
He even mentions how farm companies back in the day trained operators to smile while they were talking.
What?
They called it phone power.
Phone power. Interesting.
It sounds funny, but think about it. Even though customers couldn't see those operators,
Right.
they could hear the warmth and positivity in their voices.
I guess so, yeah.
And that positive energy translates directly to the customer experience. A simple smile can create a more welcoming, approachable atmosphere, whether you're interacting in person or virtually.
Yeah.
And for entrepreneurs, that's priceless.
Totally sets the stage for building rapport and establishing strong connections.
Then there's remembering names. I think
Mhm.
we all secretly love hearing our own name right. Carnegie tells this amazing story about Jim Farley, the guy who managed FDR's 1932 campaign.
Okay.
This guy could remember the names of thousands of people.
Wow.
Imagine the impact that had on voters.
Oh, yeah.
It made them feel seen, heard, and valued, all crucial elements for building trust and loyalty.
For sure.
And for entrepreneurs, this translates directly to how you interact with your clients, investors, employees.
Mm-hmm.
Think about the lasting impression you make when you can remember someone's name, especially in a crowded room or after meeting them just once.
Totally. It sends a powerful message that you're paying attention
Yes.
and you value that person as an individual.
It shows you're not just in it for the transaction.
Right.
And that brings us to another crucial principle. Be a good listener.
Oh, yeah.
I've got to admit,
That's
this
fine.
one has been a game changer for me personally.
It's so important.
It's not just about waiting for your turn to talk.
Right.
It's about truly absorbing what the other person is saying, understanding their perspective, their needs, their pain points.
Active listening is essential in the business world,
Yes.
especially for entrepreneurs.
Carnegie tells this hilarious story about a salesman who could never close a deal with this one particular client.
Uh-oh.
Then one day, they start chatting about the client's passion for bread making.
Uh-huh. Okay.
The salesman barely even mentioned his product.
Interesting.
But by tapping into the client's interests, he built a genuine connection,
Mm-hmm.
gained their trust,
Mm.
and ultimately closed the deal.
Wow.
It's about tailoring your communication to resonate with your audience,
Yeah.
showing that you understand their world, their
Uh-huh.
passions, their motivations. And for entrepreneurs, that's the key to crafting compelling pitches, marketing campaigns,
Right.
and building long-lasting customer relationships.
Successful entrepreneurs don't just talk AT people, they talk with them.
Yes.
And that's a crucial distinction.
And finally, there's making others feel important.
Oh, this is a big one.
This one's huge, E.
Yeah.
Carnegie highlights a guy who could call 50,000 people by their first names.
Get out of here.
Talk about making a lasting impression.
That's incredible.
It's about recognizing and appreciating the people around you, whether they were your customers,
Yeah.
your investors, your employees, or your partners.
Yeah.
A simple gesture of genuine appreciation can go a long way.
It really can.
It's about building up your team, empowering them, and creating a culture of mutual respect and support. And that creates a ripple effect, fostering a sense of loyalty, motivation,
Yeah.
and ultimately driving success for everyone involved.
Think of it as an investment in your business's greatest asset. It's people.
Absolutely.
Whoa.
All right, so those are Carnegie's 6 principles for likability.
Okay.
And honestly, they're spot on for entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
but he doesn't stop there. He goes on to explore how to actually win people over to your way of thinking, how to persuade effectively.
An art of persuasion.
That, my friends, is where things get really interesting.
All right, let's get into it. Okay, so we're diving into the art of persuasion,
Yes,
a skill set that's absolutely essential for any entrepreneur.
absolutely, because likability will only get you so far.
It's true.
You need to be able to inspire, convince, and get people on board with your vision.
Exactly. And Carnegie lays out some brilliant principles for doing just that.
Okay.
Let's start with one that might seem counterintuitive, especially in the competitive world of business. Avoid arguments.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
But what about those, tough negotiations?
Yeah.
Those boardroom battles, those times when you need to stand your ground.
Well, Carnegie tells this great story about being at a dinner party
Okay.
and getting corrected on a Shakespeare quote.
Oh, no.
And it turned into this awkward, uncomfortable situation.
Yeah.
And he realized something important. Sometimes it's better to let those little things go.
Pick your battles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur, your time and energy are precious resources.
Yes.
Don't waste them on trivial disagreements.
Yeah.
Focus on the big picture, the goals that truly matter.
So instead of getting bogged down in those back and forth arguments, try to find common ground.
Right.
Build consensus and move forward together.
That's the key to effective leadership. And it leads beautifully into the next principle. Respect opinions, even when you don't agree with them.
This one's huge for entrepreneurs, especially when you're pitching to investors or trying to secure funding. Imagine telling a potential investor that their idea is completely wrong.
Yeah. You're not going to get very far with that.
Not exactly a recipe for success.
Right.
It's about approaching those conversations with an open mind,
Yeah.
seeking to understand their perspective even if you disagree.
Because you never know, they might have valuable insights that you haven't considered.
Yeah, and even if you don't change your mind, you've earned their respect by showing that you value their input.
Absolutely.
And that can go a long way in building strong relationships.
Definitely.
And speaking of building trust, Carnegie has a principle that's absolutely crucial for entrepreneurs. Admit your mistakes.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Now, I know this can be tough, especially in a high-stakes environment where everyone's trying to project an image of success.
Yeah, but think about it. We're all human.
Right.
We all make mistakes. Trying to cover them up or shift blame only erodes trust and damages your credibility.
It's like that saying, a man who has committed a mistake and doesn't correct it is committing another mistake.
Ooh, I like that one.
Owning up to your mistakes shows humility, integrity, and a willingness to learn and grow,
And those are qualities that people admire and respect,
especially in a leader.
especially in a leader.
It also creates a more open, honest, and ultimately more productive work environment.
Definitely.
Okay, so we've talked about avoiding arguments, respecting opinions,
Right.
and admitting mistakes. What's next on Carnegie's persuasion playbook?
Begin in a friendly way.
Okay.
This might sound obvious,
Yeah.
but it's amazing how often people launch into conversations with negativity or aggression.
Especially when they're stressed or under pressure.
Exactly.
Mhm.
But Carnegie emphasizes the importance of setting a positive tone from the start. A friendly greeting, a warm smile, a genuine expression of interest. These small gestures can make a huge difference.
Yeah, it disarms people,
It does.
creates a sense of rapport, and sets the stage for a more productive and collaborative interaction.
And that's essential for entrepreneurs who are constantly pitching ideas, negotiating deals, and building relationships.
Now, this next principle is one of my favorites because it's so clever. Get yes, yes responses.
Oh, yes.
Can you elaborate on that?
So it's all about framing your questions in a way that encourages agreement.
Okay.
Carnegie gives this great example of a bank teller who used this technique to secure a new customer.
Oh, interesting.
Instead of asking, "Would you like to open an account with us?"
Which could be a no.
which could easily lead to a no,
Yeah.
he asked a series of questions that elicited yes responses.
Yep.
For example, you want your money to be safe, don't you?
Right.
You want to earn interest on your savings, right?
Of course.
By getting those initial yeses, he created a momentum of agreement, making it much more likely that the customer would ultimately say yes to opening an account.
It's a subtle but powerful technique for guiding people towards your desired outcome. And it works beautifully in all sorts of entrepreneurial situations,
Yeah.
from sales pitches to team meetings to negotiating with partners.
Now, this next principle might sound passive, but it's actually incredibly powerful. Let others talk.
Really?
Carnegie tells this fascinating story about a salesman who landed a massive order by simply letting the client talk
Wow.
the whole time.
The whole time. What was he selling?
It sounds counterintuitive,
Yeah.
but it's a brilliant strategy. By listening attentively, asking insightful questions, and letting the client express their needs and desires, he gained valuable information, built rapport, and ultimately earned their trust.
Interesting.
And that's how he closed the deal. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the best way to influence someone is to simply listen.
Active listening is a superpower,
It is.
especially for entrepreneurs.
It allows you to gather crucial information, understand your target audience, and tailor your approach to resonate with their specific needs and desires.
And that brings us to another key principle for winning people over. Let others feel ownership of ideas.
Oh, I like this one.
Carnegie had this aha moment when he was struggling to get people to participate in his public speaking classes.
Yeah.
Then he realized something. People are much more engaged when they feel like they have a stake in the outcome.
They're invested.
So instead of dictating topics, he started letting participants choose what they wanted to talk about.
Okay.
And suddenly their enthusiasm skyrocketed.
Makes sense.
They felt empowered, invested, and ultimately more successful.
Yeah.
And that's a lesson that entrepreneurs can apply in all areas of their business,
It is.
from delegating tasks to brainstorming new ideas to building a strong company culture.
When you empower your team, give them ownership, and let them contribute their unique talents and perspectives, you unlock their full potential
Yes.
and create a much more dynamic and innovative environment.
And that leads to better results for everyone involved.
It does.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from avoiding arguments to letting others talk.
Well, we have.
What's next on Carnegie's Persuasion Masterclass?
See things from the other person's perspective.
Okay, this is a big one. It's so easy to get caught up in our own world,
It is.
our own goals, our own point of view.
Yeah.
But Carnegie emphasizes the importance of stepping outside ourselves and truly understanding where the other person is coming from.
He tells this great story about trying to stop boys from building fires in a park.
Oh.
He tried lecturing them, threatening them,
Oh.
but nothing worked. Then he shifted his perspective and realized, hey, these boys are just having fun.
Yeah.
They're not trying to be malicious.
They just want to roast some marshmallows.
So he changed his approach and appealed to their sense of adventure and responsibility.
Okay.
And guess what? It worked.
It worked.
It's a brilliant example of how empathy can be a powerful tool for persuasion.
It is.
And for entrepreneurs, this is essential for understanding your target market, your customers, your investors. What are their needs? What are their pain points? What are their motivations?
When you can see the world through their eyes, you can craft products, services, and marketing messages that truly resonate and connect.
Exactly.
It's about building bridges instead of walls,
I love that.
finding common ground and creating win-win solutions.
Absolutely.
All right, what's next on Carnegie's list of persuasion power moves?
Be sympathetic to the other person's ideas and desires.
Okay, so this builds on the previous principle, right?
It does.
It's not just about understanding their perspective,
Right.
but also validating their feelings and acknowledging their needs.
Carnegie shares a personal story about receiving a ton of angry letters
Oh, no.
after making a geographical error in a broadcast.
Oh, yikes.
It was a tough experience, but he realized that even criticism can be an opportunity for empathy.
Turn those lemons into lemonade.
Instead of getting defensive or dismissing those complaints, he tried to understand where those people were coming from, their frustration, their disappointment. And that allowed him to respond in a way that was both constructive and compassionate.
This is a crucial skill for entrepreneurs, especially when dealing with customer complaints or negative feedback.
It is.
It's about turning those challenging situations into opportunities to build stronger relationships and improve your business.
A customer who feels heard and understood is much more likely to become a loyal advocate for your brand.
Okay, we're getting close to the end of Carnegie's persuasion principles here.
We are.
What else do we have?
Appeal to nobler motives.
Oh,
This is about tapping into people's values, their aspirations, their desire to make a positive impact.
I like that.
Carnegie tells a great story about John D. Rockefeller Jr., who stopped intrusive photographers
Oh, eh?
by appealing to their desire to protect children.
Oh.
Instead of getting into a confrontation or resorting to legal threats, he simply said, "Gentlemen, I am sure you would not want to do anything that would hurt these children."
That's so smart.
And it worked. The photographers backed down, realizing that their actions could have negative consequences for the innocent kids.
Wow. It's a powerful example of how appealing to people's better nature
Right.
can be a much more effective strategy
Right.
than using force or coercion.
And for entrepreneurs, this is about building a values-driven business.
Yes.
One that stands for something more than just profit.
When you genuinely care about your customers, your employees, your community, and the world around you, it shows.
It does.
And people are drawn to that authenticity.
They are.
It inspires trust, loyalty, and ultimately long-term success.
It really does.
Now, this next principle is all about capturing attention
Okay.
and making your message memorable, dramatize your ideas.
Oh, fun.
Carnegie tells this hilarious story about a salesman who made his point by dramatically dumping jars of cold cream on a client's desk.
What?
It might sound extreme,
Yeah.
but it certainly got their attention.
I bet it did.
And that's the point. Sometimes you need to go beyond the ordinary to make your ideas stand out, to create a lasting impression, to spark that aha moment.
For entrepreneurs, this is about finding creative ways to showcase your products, services, and brand.
Yeah.
It's about telling compelling stories, using powerful visuals, and creating experiences that engage all the senses.
Thinking outside the box.
Yeah, and finding ways to make your message stick in a world that's constantly bombarded with information.
All right, we're down to the last principle, throw down a challenge.
Ooh, I like this one.
This one taps into our innate desire to achieve, to overcome obstacles, to prove ourselves. Carnegie uses a fantastic story about Charles Schwab,
Okay.
who was trying to motivate his mill workers to produce more.
Right.
Instead of giving them a pep talk or offering bonuses,
Yeah.
he did something incredibly simple.
What did he do?
He walked up to the nearest worker and asked how many heats their shift had made that day.
Okay.
I said 6.
6.
And without another word, Schwab took a piece of chalk and wrote a giant 6 on the floor.
It's just a 6.
Then he left.
He left.
When the night shift arrived, they saw that 6 and asked what it meant.
Okay.
The day crew explained that Schwab had been there, asked about their output, and chalked it on the floor.
Interesting.
It was a silent challenge.
No.
The night crew, fueled by their competitive spirit, wanted to beat the day crew's record,
Of course.
and their output soared.
Wow.
Like a powerful example of how a simple challenge can ignite motivation
Yeah.
and inspire people to achieve extraordinary results.
And for entrepreneurs, this is about setting ambitious goals for your team,
Yes.
creating a culture of healthy competition, and fostering a sense of shared purpose and accomplishment.
It's about tapping into that drive, that ambition, that desire to push boundaries and achieve something truly remarkable.
Now, those are Carnegie's principles for persuasion, and honestly, they're a game changer for any entrepreneur.
They are?
But he doesn't stop there.
No.
He also explores how to become an effective leader.
Okay, that's a whole other skill set.
It is, and it's crucial for building a successful and sustainable business.
Okay, I'm ready to learn how to become a Carnegie-approved leader.
Let's dive in. Okay,
Yeah.
so now we're talking about becoming a leader.
Yes, a Carnegie-certified leader.
Is that?
We've covered how to win friends and influence people.
Right.
But leading a team, inspiring them towards a common goal, that's a whole different ballgame.
It is, and Carnegie provides some insightful guidance that's surprisingly relevant for entrepreneurs even decades later.
Okay.
He dedicates a whole section of his book to this, focusing on how to change people without giving offense or arousing resentment.
Okay, because no one wants to work with a dictator.
Right.
So how do you strike that balance?
Yeah.
How do you guide your team effectively while still maintaining positive relationships.
Well, one of the most important principles, and I think this resonates deeply with entrepreneurs, is to begin with praise and honest appreciation.
Okay.
Before you dive into constructive criticism or point out areas for improvement, start by acknowledging the person's strengths and what they're doing well.
It's like catch people doing something right.
Exactly. Carnegie uses a fantastic example from history, a letter that Abraham Lincoln wrote to General Joseph Hooker during the Civil War.
Oh, wow.
Hooker wasn't exactly performing at his best, and Lincoln needed him to step up.
Right.
But instead of berating him, he started by praising Hooker's past successes, his courage, his strategic brilliance.
Okay.
You catch more flies with honey than with vinegar.
That's right.
And Lincoln, a master of leadership, knew how to use that honey effectively. By starting with praise, he created a more receptive environment for Hooker to hear the constructive criticism that followed.
So instead of feeling attacked or demoralized,
Right.
Hooker felt acknowledged and respected, which made him more likely to take Lincoln's feedback to heart.
Exactly. And that's a powerful lesson for any leader, especially entrepreneurs who are building and guiding their teams.
It sets the stage for a more positive and productive working relationship.
It does.
Okay, so start with praise. What's next on Carnegie's leadership playbook?
Call attention to people's mistakes indirectly. Now, this might sound a bit subtle, but it's about finding a way to help people recognize their errors without making them feel embarrassed or defensive.
Because no one wants to be publicly shamed or called out in front of their colleagues.
Right.
That just creates resentment and undermines trust.
Exactly. Carnegie uses a great story about a woman who hired a contractor to build an addition to her house.
Okay.
The problem was the construction workers kept leaving their tools and materials all over her lawn.
Oh, I can relate to that.
Right. Well, this woman was understandably frustrated, but instead of yelling at the workers or berating them, she took a different approach.
Well.
He started talking to them about how much she loved her lawn, how proud she was of her flowers, and her well-maintained garden.
She was subtly implying that their mess was ruining something she cared about without directly accusing them.
Exactly. And it worked. The workers got the message and started cleaning up after themselves.
That's great.
They realized that their actions were impacting something she valued, and they adjusted their behavior accordingly.
It's a great example of how a little finesse can go a long way.
It is.
Sometimes it's not about being blunt or confrontational. It's about finding a more tactful and respectful way to address the issue.
And that leads us to another powerful principle for effective leadership. Talk about your own mistakes before criticizing the other person.
The power of leading by example.
I love this one. It's about showing vulnerability, acknowledging that you're not perfect,
Right.
that you've made your fair share of mistakes along the way.
Carnegie tells a story about a time when he had to reprimand an employee for making a mistake that had caused a lot of trouble and inconvenience.
Yeah.
Initially, he was really frustrated and wanted to just unleash his anger. But then he remembered this principle.
He took a breath.
So instead of blaming the employee, he started by acknowledging his own mistakes, his own shortcomings.
Exactly. He said something like, look, I've made plenty of mistakes myself. We all do. But here's the thing. And then he went on to explain the situation and how the employee's error had impacted things.
By admitting his own fallibility, he created a more level playing field. It took the sting out of the criticism and made the employee feel like they weren't alone in making mistakes.
It also made them more receptive to the feedback and more willing to learn from their mistakes.
It's a powerful reminder that humility is a strength, not a weakness,
Definitely.
especially for leaders.
Okay, ready for another leadership gem from Carnegie?
Absolutely. Lay it on me.
Ask questions instead of giving direct orders.
Okay.
Now, this might seem a bit counterintuitive, especially if you're used to a more traditional top-down management style.
But it's about empowering your team, encouraging them to think for themselves and come up with their own solutions.
Exactly. Carnegie gives a great example of a sales manager who was struggling with a team of discouraged and disorganized salespeople.
Oh.
Instead of lecturing them or dictating what they should do, he started by asking them what they expected from him as their manager.
He flipped the script.
Exactly. And he listened carefully to their responses, writing their ideas on a blackboard. Then he turned the tables and asked, now what do I have a right to expect from you?
That's so smart.
It shifted the dynamic from a boss-employee relationship to a more collaborative partnership.
And it got results.
It did.
The salespeople, energized by this new approach, responded enthusiastically, listing qualities like Loyalty, honesty, initiative, optimism, teamwork.
They created their own code of conduct, their own set of expectations for how they would work together.
And their sales performance improved dramatically.
It's a powerful testament to the effectiveness of this approach.
It is.
By asking questions instead of giving orders, you tap into people's intrinsic motivation, their desire to contribute, their sense of ownership.
It's about creating a more engaged, more empowered, and ultimately more successful team.
All right, ready for another leadership nugget from Carnegie?
Absolutely. Keep them coming.
Let the other person save face.
Okay.
This is a big one, especially in a professional setting where people's reputations and egos are often on the line.
No one wants to feel humiliated or belittled, especially in front of their colleagues.
Exactly. Carnegie stresses the importance of preserving people's dignity even when they've made mistakes.
Okay.
He tells a great story about a department store that had a unique way of handling seasonal employees.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Well, instead of just casually letting those employees go at the end of the busy season, they would call each employee in for a personal meeting.
Okay.
The manager would start by praising the employee's work, highlighting their strengths, their contributions, their positive attitude.
Yeah.
They were trying to end things on a positive note, even though the working relationship was coming to an end.
Right.
Exactly. And they would emphasize that the employees' skills were valuable and that they were wished well in their future endeavors.
Yeah.
It was a way of letting those employees go with their dignity intact.
It's a powerful reminder that even in difficult situations, it's crucial to treat people with respect and empathy.
It's about preserving relationships, recognizing people's inherent worth, and leaving the door open for future possibilities.
Okay, what's next on Carnegie's leadership checklist?
Praise the slightest improvement and praise every improvement. Be hearty in your approbation and lavish in your praise.
I love this.
It's like we were saying before about positive reinforcement.
Yes.
We all thrive on recognition, encouragement, and knowing that our efforts are appreciated.
And this is especially important in the entrepreneurial world where people are constantly pushing boundaries, taking risks, and facing challenges.
Absolutely. A little bit of encouragement can go a long way in keeping your team motivated, engaged, and committed to the mission.
It's about creating a culture of positivity growth and celebrating even the smallest victories along the way.
And those small victories often pave the way for bigger breakthroughs.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground here today, exploring Carnegie's wisdom on winning friends, influencing people, and becoming an effective leader.
It's a classic for a reason.
What's the key takeaway from all of this, especially for entrepreneurs?
I think it's that relationships are the foundation of success. Whether you're building a business, leading a team, or navigating the complexities of the marketplace, the principles Carnegie lays out can help you build stronger, more authentic, and more productive connections.
It's about understanding human nature, connecting on a deeper level, and finding ways to inspire, motivate, and empower the people around you.
And that's the essence of true leadership.
Well, there you have it. A deep dive into Dale Carnegie's timeless wisdom, tailored specifically for entrepreneurs like you.
Hope you enjoyed it.
I hope you found it insightful, inspiring, and most importantly, actionable. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep those connections strong.